Test, test.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Starbucks with Jim and DiNardo. I, of course, am your host, Anthony DiNardo. With me this glorious Thursday morning, Jim Rosati. Jim, welcome.
Yeah, good morning. I feel like we haven't done this in like a year, DiNardo.
You know what? No, stop it. It's been since last year, Jim. Oh my God.
We haven't done this since last year.
Holy shit. Yeah, Jim. It's been since last year. I'm glad you got to end the year with that stupid joke and you got to get it with that same joke again. Good for you, Jim. Good for you.
That was the goal.
We're so proud of you, Jim. Terrible joke maker.
I mean, hey, it works. Works every year.
All right, we're moving on. But no, honestly, speaking about your new year, how was your new year?
It was good. It was good. How about yours?
It was good. I mean, it couldn't really be great this year, right? For the most part.
Right.
So I guess for what it was good.
Yeah.
We ended up not doing a live stream. Although at like 8 o'clock, Tyler was like, we should have. I was like, you know what, Tyler? You can never plan anything with Tyler, right?
No.
So unreliable. That's why nobody likes him. But yeah,
there should have been a live stream. Really, you should have just live streamed the new year. You needed to watch Iron Man. Did you watch Iron Man like you said you were going to?
No, I didn't. But I also didn't watch, Endgame last year, that whole thing. So maybe I shouldn't have.
Okay.
Right? Like I didn't have to reverse the curse like you mentioned, Jim.
That's true.
So, yeah, there was that. So I didn't watch Iron Man. I did watch one of the New Year's. I don't know which one it is. I don't know. I think it's the original. Oh my God, now I'm forgetting his name. Who did New Year's Eve all the time? Passed away.
Dick Clark.
Yeah, Dick Clark. There you go. I think I watched that one. It was the one with Cyndi Lauper and that fiasco. That's for sure. So.
Gotcha. I've never watched like an old New Year's, so.
Oh, sorry. I guess I'm just boring. Just like, I don't do that.
I don't. Why would you do that? No, it's good. It's 2021, so I'm ready for a new year. Let's get it rolling.
Yeah, well, it started off pretty eventful, I would say, as of yesterday.
Yeah, there's some crazy stuff going on. Yeah. And of course, we're talking about the Pirates Zips projections are out.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Full transparency, we didn't do the show yesterday morning because of scheduling conflicts, right? Kind of like last week. Mm-hmm. So we moved over here. And again, I'll be honest, I plan on looking at this a little bit more in depth last night. I was like, all right, cool. You know what? Zips came out the day before. I'll look more into Zips, talk about it on Thursday morning. I didn't look into it last night, Jim, like I intended to. There was something a little more interesting in my life that I decided to look at and watch. And so I guess to all the people, I apologize that I'm not more in tune on Zips, but...
Yeah, no, same here. I didn't get a chance to really dive deep into them. There's a couple things that, kind of stand out that I guess we can kind of go over, but But yeah, it's yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch to go over it as much as I would have liked.
I don't think many people are blaming us, hopefully. So they were probably watching also.
Yeah.
But maybe we should get into it then, Jim, a little bit here. So let's talk about the Zips. So Dan Zaborski releases them. Pirates finally are released. As he mentioned, it's more or less like the computer program that he's put together. Makes a projection based off their past experiences and comps, what they would do over, a full season this upcoming year. Now, I guess let's say this. As you mentioned, there's some surprises. Do you think because, 2020 was a season, albeit it was short, and because it was short, it screwed with a lot of people's numbers. Do you think that took a major factor in a lot of these projections here?
I think Zips, it doesn't really put a whole lot of weight into just like a 60 game, stretch. It does kind of look at an overall body of work and try to figure out what's going to happen. So, but I'm sure it definitely played a part. We see, just looking at somebody like Brian Reynolds' numbers, right? I'm sure if we look back at his Zips projections from last year, probably took a pretty significant hit from where we were then. I wonder if there's a way to see that. I wonder if there's a way to see what 2020 Zips projections were.
I'm actually going to pull them up right now. So how about that, Jim?
There we go. I was Googling it as well.
For 2020, Brian Reynolds' Zips projections was a 1.1 WAR, and he was going to bat. It was 100 OPS.
Yeah, you know what? It's really not a whole lot off.
265 average, 329 on base, 423 slugging. A dead even 100 OPS plus, number one comp, Andre Ethier. So this year, since we're speaking of it, this year, it really wasn't too much of a difference, but it was definitely a drop. A 247 average, 319 on base, 414 slugging, good for a 96 OPS plus. So 4-point drop, league average numbers, 1.5 WAR. Yeah.
Yeah, not
which
a whole lot off.
He had a terrible 2020. So
yeah. One person that seems to have taken a huge hit, from last year to this year, Gregory Polanco. Nowhere near his projection last year. Last year it was projected 105 OPS plus. This year 84. So there's a significant difference and a pretty significant dip there.
And that's, what that equates to is a 216 average, a 288 on base. Man, I hope
those are pretty pathetic numbers.
I'm probably the most optimistic person on Polanco here, and I'll admit to it. I'll admit. Yeah. It's just because the talent, he's such a talented person. The talent's there. Injuries, you could say, messing and tinkering with the swing so much too, potentially. It's just like there's something there. It's got to come out at some point, right? Eventually he's got to get fully healed, but he's in the Dominican League and still not a major overhaul, and then he broke his hand, of course. Oh man, but that's not what we're looking for this year. We need Polanco to bounce back, become a trade chip, get rid of that contract, and bring something back.
They're projecting Pablo Reyes and Kevin Kramer to be far better players than Gregory Polanco.
Yeah, that says a lot.
No.
Right. We're in the realm of Pablo Reyes. Jeez.
It's insane.
Yeah, obviously the first thing the article stands out and talks about is, Brian Hayes.
Yep.
And as Dan,
that is definitely the bright spot.
Dan likes to be a jokester as well, maybe a little bit better one than you, Jim. As he stands out and says, one of the guys, he says, well, maybe the guy to look at this year because his team is so bad. And it's true. And as his projections comes out, like you pointed out earlier, he's the only one to have a positive, a good OPS plus. He's projected a 105 OPS plus?
105, only player on the team to crack 100.
Which, 105 isn't anything to toot your horn about.
No.
We're not screaming like, oh my God, Brian Hayes, a 105 OPS plus. He's outstanding. Especially as a third baseman. That's Colin Moran territory, of the old Colin Moran.
Well, the difference is, and this is kind of what we thought, and I mean, again, Brian Hayes was in the majors for 3 weeks last year. So those 3 weeks aren't playing a huge role in these numbers. But, coming up through the minors and when he first broke, what was our thought? Our thought the entire time was, hey, if he can be the glove that he's projected to be,
right,
and then just be fine hitting, like be like an average hitter, he's going to be a 3-WAR player, right? And I mean, this right here is kind of showing us Brian Hayes with a 105 OPS plus is a 3-WAR player. That was kind of what the thing with Hayes, and the reason why he was really high on prospect lists was just because his floor was so high. Like there was like it was no doubt that he was just because of how his glove was and his ability to at least be an average hitter.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to be an everyday major league player. I mean, it was just, you could see it, you could tell that, and you knew that he was going to be that he was going to be a contributor on a major league team. Where we are still kind of in the unknown is, okay, we saw him hit last year. If he can, obviously he's not going to replicate the numbers that he put up in those 3 weeks, but
are you sure?
Over an entire season.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Jim? Are you
I'm
sure?
pretty sure. Pretty sure. But again, if Brian Hayes can show that he is an above average hitter, then you're looking at someone who is a potential, 5-win player over there at third base. So I think the Zips projections on him are conservative. But at the same time, it is a little surprising to see him as the top hitter on the team. Because, again, I mean, he was up for a few weeks. He was basically average in AAA. So they did give him a little bit of bump for those 3 weeks, which is resulting in this 3-win projection.
Yeah, and that's cool to see. Like you mentioned, with that type of a bat, a 105, which as a third baseman is probably going to be below average, right? 105 is 5% above average for league, but as a third baseman, it's probably going to be a little bit below. But even at that, right, the defense certainly plays. As he pointed out in here, he was the best defender on his system in the minor leagues for like 3 straight years as well. So those gold gloves were very deserving for him in the minor leagues. And with that type of defense and just the average bat, 3+ WAR player, that's pretty cool. So at least what we saw last year, I mean, there was a fundamental change in his swing, his approach, and what we did see last year gives us a chance. Like there could be more potential, with that bat, and if that, obviously not to the degree that it was last year, but if that does come out and he hits and taps into that power, has a really good bat, you're right. I mean, this is the difference from just a role player to face of the franchise, if I'm going to put it out there, because there's not many that can be the face of the franchise right now. But, he is that type of player. What I think we were hoping Josh Bell to be, So, yeah, that's nice. And that's the thing. Like, that's what this team has really lacked. There's we talk about the farm and how deep it is and it's solid, but it's a lot of good players. There's no stars, really, at this point, that I could really count of. I'm not sure if you agree or disagree. It's really like Brian Hayes holds that potential, and it's all tied to the bat.
Yeah. Again, if he can hit, no reason why he can't. Yeah, no reason why he can't be 4 to 5-win player. So it's gonna, like I said, that'll be. And he mentions it. It's like that's like the one interesting thing here when it comes to the offense.
Right.
the rest of the batters, it's ugly. These are some ugly projections. Hayes, though, the bright spot.
Certainly. Well, the next guy up, as far as WAR goes, is, speaking of he can hit David, Adam Frazier. He's projected a 2-point WAR, 2.1 WAR, but 96 OPS plus. So for again a guy that can hit below league average. Last year his name was floated around as far as a trade chip. Seems like it's been floated around this year, but no traction. I mean, I don't know if we're even going to see an Adam Frazier trade this offseason, but I don't know. He's projected to go into this year and be a below average hitter. So I guess a lot is tied to his glove as well, which his glove has been more surprising. It's funny how, he's come up and it's like reverse. He's been, for the most part, a below average hitter and a good gold glove finalist. Not sure where that really came from, but
it is weird. Yeah. Cause his first 2 seasons, it was the complete opposite.
Right.
Yeah. His hitting has regressed, whereas his defense has gotten better over the years. But I was comparing him to last year's projections too. Not a whole lot of difference there. There's a slight dip again, and it's really tied to the offense. Offense going down, in particular the on base, really across the board, batting average, on base percentage, slugging percentage. Defensively, still projected to be a solid second baseman. And 2.1 WAR. So I mean that's your average. That's your average Major League Baseball player, which kind of fits Adam Frazier. He is average. There's nothing really too spectacular about him. Nothing that is necessarily there's nothing necessarily that he's not a bad player. That's why he's getting all this trade interest, is because he is a useful major leaguer. Which that this slates him kind of right in there as that. Yeah.
Yep. Just again, a few years ago you just thought it would be different though. You thought it'd be because he had a decent bat. The glove was okay, but he could play different positions, and instead it's because he's a really good, defensive player at second base. Here's what's funny. And the reason I say it's funny is because so much we're to blame here too. We forget about this guy all the time. A little bit peek behind the scenes as well.
Yeah.
In our text, we're talking about, okay, so Bell was just traded, right? Ozuna's over in Japan. There's Colin Rand, there's Brian Hayes. Is Will Craig going to make this team? Like, who's there to bat? I'm thinking, man, you got a point. It's going to be Will Craig. Jim, Phillip Evans is still a Pirate. Every podcast, I feel this comes up. Every podcast, we forget about him.
Yeah.
He's projected the third best player on the Pirates, and we keep forgetting about him.
And I think it's just because he played 7 games last year, so it's 7. And I mean he played well. It's not that he didn't play very well. He was probably the best player on the team in those games.
It was a fun 7 games, Jim. Very fun.
Yeah, it ended up being 11, I guess, which is surprising. I didn't think it was that many. 11 games last year, and he hit the ball. And I just completely forgot about him. Yeah, I completely forgot about him. As a person, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, Josh Bell's gone. Will Craig's going to be on this team. There's no one else who can play the corner infield. Will Craig is going to make this team, and Will Craig's not going to make the team. Phillip Evans is going to make the team most likely, unless he completely tanks in the spring training.
But then, also Will Craig would have to do well, though.
Yeah. But I think really, I mean, just based off of what we saw from Evans last year, I think he's earned himself a shot to, get some more bats.
Why not on this club, right?
Right.
What he did last year wouldn't earn him a spot, on the Dodgers by any means. But on this club, what he did, I'm intrigued. Let's find out. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, we wanted to find out last year, and due to an injury, which again, Polanco, thanks, we didn't really get to see. So let's carry it over to this year and find out.
like you mentioned, he is projected to be the third best hitter on this team. Third best batter.
Well,
not best hitter,
wise,
but best batter. Best batter.
Right.
Yeah. Best position player. Yeah, it's crazy. And he is versatile enough that he could be a valuable piece on a roster. You can play a lot of positions. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, well, that's again, we forgot about him. I'm glad that he is where he is on this list, because then that made me kind of look at him again. I feel like if he would have been down like in the Socrates Brito territory,
oh boy,
I would have just been like, oh, who, what?
And that's why we keep forgetting about him. But actually, it makes us worse. We keep forgetting about him. He's like the third best Pirate, Like what kind of people?
Exactly.
Who are we? But next down the list is Brian Reynolds. We kind of talked about him a little bit. I mean, the 96 OPS plus. So he, last year I understand like he had a bad season, and as you pointed out too, I mean the 2020 projections weren't too high on him either. I get. But, when you take out last year, the thing is, like, he's always hit above 300. He's always been a good hitter everywhere he went. His first year into the Pirates, major leagues, he was a phenomenal hitter. We saw what he did, but unfortunately came into this year. It's a weird season. He became a dad. There were 60 games. I mean, you can make all the excuses. Who cares? Whatever. But I don't know. Like, he's hit everywhere, almost like the Adam Frazier thing. Like, he's never been a superstar, but he's hit everywhere. He showed he could hit last year. He had an off year. I don't know. Like, do you really foresee his 2021 season being this, or do you think he can beat these projections?
This would be like the one person where if I'm looking at these projections, like I'm betting Brian Reynolds beats these. Yeah. I don't think Brian Reynolds is going to hit 247 over the course of a 162 game season.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't think that's going to happen. I guess if you kind of look at where he is his career, if we're talking about, just looking what he's done over 189 major league games, 347 batting average balls in play, that he's projected for 312 right now. So I think that number is going to be higher than that, just because if you look in the minors, that's kind of one of the things that doesn't change a whole lot when someone reaches the majors. Like that is a skill that seems to be, for the most part, there's a little bit of fluctuation here and there, but that's a constant, because a lot of it's based off of your batted ball data, and if you hit the ball hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that 312 is a little low for Reynolds. I again, last year I said, but when we were doing our over under projections, I think did we do his batting average at like 299?
I think so.
I think. Yeah. Because he was one of those guys that, going into last year, we basically were like, there's no, this guy's a 300 hitter. Like,
right.
That, and now here we are staring at a 247 projection. That's too low, in my opinion.
I agree. I really feel, again, Brian Reynolds is not going to be a superstar either. Like, he's not the savior of this team, but he is definitely, in my mind, like a good role player. He's a good hitter, not the best defender, but a good hitter. And to see, those projections that low, yeah, I can't really get on board with it. I just feel the same. Is he going to be a 300 hitter plus? I don't know. I would have took the under last year on the 300 as well, I think I said. But it would have been very close. Like, that's a good number to put it at. If he's a 280 hitter, close to 290, I think that's fair. And that's still, with his body of work, obviously a productive player. So I'm with you too. I could definitely easily see Brian Reynolds beating those projections. If he had that type of a season this year, I would say I would be disappointed.
Yeah, and so when they do these, they give you a comp, right? Number one comp. and I had no idea who this comp even was. Jeff Fiorentino. Apparently, he played for the Orioles for 4 years in the mid 2000s. Never had more than 24 games played. So, like, that's just not. I'm sorry. Those Zips projections are off. that's not. Those are gonna. He is going to prove those projections wrong.
Oh boy, we're gonna get Dan back on the show. You guys are gonna hash it out.
Yeah, like seriously, I'll yell at his computer for about that one.
All right. Next up on the list, Jacob Stallings, 1.5 WAR, 86 OPS plus. I mean, I'm not shocked on that. I mean, he's never been the best hitter, but he's never been the like, oh, I'm Chris Stewart, just a very, very poor bat. So 86 as a defensive-minded catcher, that seems about right. He could probably do better than that. He could probably do a little bit worse. That's right in there. Very good defensively. So yeah, like a 1.5 WAR. It's kind of what he is.
Yeah, no, this one's pretty spot on. Not really looking at anything here that's too overwhelming or underwhelming. Like I said, Stallings is what he is. Yeah, I think that I could see him pushing into the twos, like as a 2-win player.
And actually, let me say something too, because I kind of support your thing here too. So, and that's also projecting him at just 332 plate appearances. It's very likely he'll get the bulk of the catcher duties. So I could see him creeping into the 400s, which then you're looking at like a 2-win player.
Yeah, so I think that's what he ends up being. But I'm not really seeing anything too far off on these projections.
No.
Below average hitter, but capable, especially at the catcher position, and then good defense. So that's pretty much who he is.
Right. So let's move on. This one, I don't know if it stings or not, but Kevin Newman. Also, we're talking about Brian Reynolds. Kevin Newman had a fantastic rookie season as well. I think it might have shocked more people what he did than what Reynolds did. But he had a really good year. Of course, 2020, as most people, had a very, very poor year. Yikes, Jim. 82 weighted runs. OPS plus, 82 OPS plus. So we're talking 18% below league average.
Yeah.
264, 312 hitter. Of course, no pop. 1.2 WAR.
None.
None.
a 0.99 ISO.
Yes. And just so you know, as of last year, he was projected at a 90 weighted run created plus. So also a pretty substantial fall for Newman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his year last year was not good. So it kind of makes you think that 2019, is that not really who he is? Because he was bad last year. No power at all last year. He still put the ball in play, so that was kind of the constant. Strikeout rate was still real low. He actually walked more last year than he did the year before. But the big difference was in 2019. His BABIP was great. He was able to pick up a lot of infield hits. I think we talked about it at one point. He led the majors last year in 2019 in infield hits.
Yep.
So that sort of went away. His defense took a hit. So he just kind of went down across the board with everything but his walk rate. Which, if you're looking at this now, the walk rate's pretty similar here. But yeah, this is not what you want to see out of what is probably going to be your everyday shortstop. I think if he puts up a season like this, like if he puts up a 264, 312, 363 slash line.
And we're not talking about, this spectacular defensive glove-minded, shortstop, and we'll take that bat, like a Stallings in that sense.
Right.
Like we're not talking about, he's a wizard with a glove, So we'll take this poor offense. Like his bat is his key of being a major leaguer.
Yeah.
His
So
glove is terrible.
If this is who he is, then he is not on this team very long. Like, I mean, once he reaches arbitration, he could be non-tendered.
Right. Yeah. I mean, with those type of numbers, right. So, talking a 1.2 WAR with him. I'm not high on Kevin Newman. I'm really not. But it's at the same sense. Am I this low on Kevin Newman? That's tough to call. I think he's somewhere in the middle here. I would say I would look more to like last year's projections to what Kevin Newman maybe is. So maybe not to the Brian Reynolds degree, but I could see Newman beating these projections. Maybe we're just hoping he does, and he's not that this bad. But I could see with Newman being a little bit better than this. But
he did.
I think it's fair to that he is this unloved.
So he did show some pop in his rookie year, right? 2019, he hit 12 home runs. Last year he had one home run last year. So I don't know what happened to the power. Because
it wasn't like he really had power ever though either. Like any other time, he never had power.
Right. That's true. So like throughout his minors, he never really showed that he did. His skill coming through the minors was that he could hit for average, right? I mean, that was what he did all the way through the minor leagues.
Right.
And yeah, once he hit the majors, then he kind of started showing this pop that you hadn't seen before. Now, one home run, though, I don't think that's who he is. But honestly, in today's age, if you're an everyday player and you don't have double-digit home runs, like, what are you doing?
Right.
Just with the way the game is right now, like it's almost embarrassing if you look at someone's numbers at the end of a year and they don't have at least 10 home runs.
Yeah, I think for the most part.
I think I even looked it up in 2019, and there were, like, as far as hitters who qualified for, the batting average title, it was in the very low single digits of players who didn't reach that 10 home run mark. So yeah, the power needs to come. It needs to be there, or he needs to hit, like 320. So if he's not doing that, his glove isn't good enough to warrant everyday play.
Right. True.
So yeah, that'll be an interesting one to watch. I don't know if he's this bad, like what the projections are saying. So I may agree with you there. Although last year he was truly awful, but so was so many other players on the team.
And it wasn't a whole year. I know he was in and out too, only 44 some games in the 60. Yeah. But, again, there's a lot of excuses for stuff, but it just you got to call it for what it was. It was a terrible year. It was a stupid year. Do you really want to put so much stock and weight into 2020 season numbers, right? So
right.
Yeah, it sucked, and I'm sure it factors in a little bit here, but again, think about last year coming into it. Did I totally believe in his 2019 numbers? No. I was expecting a drop off, just maybe not to this degree. But what I will say, Jim, if you need a walk-off hit, he's your guy.
Yeah. So he maybe could make a living just being a pinch hitter.
I was gonna say, is he like a 3-WAR player on the bench, just coming in when the game's tied?
Bring him in late inning, close game situations, and he becomes best hitter ever.
That's it. All right, I'm down with that. Next up, Colin Moran, 1.2 WAR. I mean, we're talking just as average as you can get, a 99 OPS plus, 258 average, 317 on base, 430 slugging. Talk about actual home runs, because I mean, he did have a spike in home runs last year. We saw the power come back a bit, 17 home runs. Is this the Colin Moran you would see in 2021?
So this is one of the players where their projections went up, from last year. So last year, Colin Moran was projected 91 OPS plus. This year, 99. A little bit bump in WAR as well, thanks to basically a bump in his power is what it kind of comes down to, in the projections at least. I think Oh, no. As far as can he do this? I mean, yeah, this is kind of who Colin Moran is. Everyday player who's average at hitting. Throughout his career, he has basically been that. He did show last year. He was probably the best hitter on the team last year. I haven't looked, but I would imagine, other than Hayes,
Brian Hayes.
And yeah. So again, as far as somebody who qualified for a number of plate appearances,
right?
His 114 weighted runs created plus was probably the tops on the team. So I would say, I actually think Colin Moran could eclipse these, like not by a lot, but I think Colin Moran can eventually slot into being an above average major league hitter. Defense, obviously not great. That may get a little bit better at first base as opposed to third,
which
we'll see. Yeah, we'll see there. But yeah, I'm not like too far off on these projections. I think he can out hit this, but I think he can also do this exactly. Like he could take a step back this year, and it wouldn't really surprise me.
Yeah, I mean we've pretty much talked about it, and I feel like that's how most people view Colin Moran. He's got kind of almost to the degree of like your Brian Hayes. Like Colin Moran was going to be a player in MLB. His floor is very, very high. Just not much of a ceiling, and that's what last year presented. Maybe there is a way we can increase that ceiling a bit, like this power that he displayed for like a half a season in AAA, with Houston. If we can get that, if we can get some power into his bat, he could potentially be a good player. We saw it last year. Again, it was a small season though. 99 OPS plus though, like again, that doesn't really get it done for a corner. That's not what you want for your first baseman, But yeah, I think this is the floor for him. He's pretty much been like this type of a player to some degree for the most part his entire career. I think what we're trying to do is bank that power is legit, that there really is something there. I mean, he did hit the ball a lot harder last year. So, this to me is the floor for Colin Moran. Would I be shocked at this? No, absolutely not. But I do think that you gotta get more out of this though. I know we're talking like this is cool, this is great, an average hitter, but you can't have that at first base. Honestly, like he could potentially be a trade chip. So if he goes in the next year and he has, more power, that's what you're hoping for, and boom, flip him.
Yeah, but I was just about to bring that up. Yeah, go on.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, because last year, if you take last year's numbers and spread it out over 162 game season, Colin Moran's a 30 home run player, and that's somebody you can trade. That's a valuable bat that you can trade to somebody, and I think that's eventually what you want him to become. You want him to become somebody who has that power, and teams are looking at him like somebody that they could add, to their team as an asset.
Yeah,
so
like a Josh Bell,
just like a Josh Bell. Yeah.
So we'll kind of get through the rest of these a little bit quicker, I think. My bad. Hold on. So yeah, Kevin Kramer, Pablo Reyes.
We don't need to talk about that much.
Yeah, not really. I mean, maybe I guess we scroll all the way down to Cole Tucker, 69 OPS plus.
Ugh.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah.
If anything, Cole Tucker, Vanessa Hudgens, official. Is that worth mentioning?
How about that? I think it is worth. That's. I mean, TMZ thought it was worth mentioning. So I feel like we have to. We're not above TMZ, DiNardo.
Okay, fair enough. Exactly. So when you search Cole Tucker, you're going to get TMZ, right? E! News, as you mentioned, all those, and you're going to see it in North Shore 9.
Yeah.
But not about his Zips projections, about Vanessa Hudgens.
Exactly. I'm going to say this though, like if this is what Cole Tucker does for 2021, I'm not expecting Vanessa stays with him after this. Vanessa can't be hanging out with someone, who, with a 69 OPS plus.
And again, that's the fire he needs. Vanessa Hudgens is the key to Cole Tucker's success. He needs that fire. He needs someone to make him, push and get better. But, I mean, you're saying if he does this year, he's not going to be with Vanessa Hudgens. If he does this year, what's his future for the Pirates?
Not an everyday
player. Is
there
really one?
No. I mean, I think he's a guy that you could still have on the roster, as somebody who can play multiple positions. But if this is who he is, then he is not interesting in the least bit, and he's literally just there to take a roster spot.
All right. Anything else of note for the hitters?
We talked a little bit about Polanco. These numbers are just truly dreadful.
Yeah.
Real bad. Hopefully those aren't right. Anthony Alford, who's expected to get some playing time in the outfield as well. Yeah. Also not looking good. The outfield's not looking good, DiNardo.
I mean, no one's looking good. That's the thing. So
no one's looking
clearly
good.
These guys we're talking about will also not look good. Another person not looking good, Eric Gonzalez, 65 OPS plus. Eric Gonzalez is projected to be worse than Cole Tucker. I mean, put that into your mouth and chew it. Like, Eric Gonzalez is worse than Cole Tucker with all the love we gave Eric Gonzalez for that bit last year, right? And the breakouts coming. And is he Fernando Tatis Jr., Jim? And now he's projected to be worse than Cole Tucker.
There are people on this list who are projected to be better than Eric Gonzalez that I've never heard of before.
Speaking of Chris Sharp.
Yeah, like Sherman Johnson. Is that even a real person?
Sherman Johnson.
No idea who that is.
There you go.
But yeah, if it means anything to you, Eric Gonzalez's number one comp is Pat Mears.
Yeah, let's move forward.
So, all of the fond memories that Pat Mears instills in us.
Great. Okay, I guess let's go over to the pitching. So the number one player of note, which I don't think is a surprise, the number one projected player as far as WAR and everything goes, Joe Musgrove. I mean, that's our chip this year, right? So Joe Musgrove's projected to have 140 innings pitched, 3.99 ERA, 3.79 FIP, right? 141 strikeouts, basically be a 2.4 WAR player. I look at this and say, I mean, the projections are spot on. It's basically what his career's been. His FIP has definitely always, been better. It's always giving you insight of like this next year is gonna be better. Like he's gonna finally do it, right? The FIP's better than the ERA. Mm-hmm. He's the other stuff. So like I'm not shocked at these projections at all. I think the projections are spot on. But what I think we're hoping, and I think what a lot of other teams are anticipating and seeing is there is a lot more in Joe Musgrove. I think that's where his trade value comes in. Is there's a lot of untapped stuff. So I think with him beating these projections, it can be done. But I mean, I'm not talking he's going to be like some ace or whatever, But I do think that he can do this. However, his career supports these numbers pretty much spot on for me.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing missing here, I think, and the reason why he's not in that 3.5 WAR range is just the innings pitched. So it's going to end up being, hey, how many games is he going to? If he stays healthy, he's going to be a 3-win player. If something happens and he doesn't make 31 starts, then he'll fall into this into the twos here. But yeah, nothing here too surprising. Yeah, nothing really of note there. Yeah. he probably should be the best pitcher on the team. I probably still put Jameson Taillon ahead of him when he's healthy. So we just need to kind of see who is Jameson Taillon now.
Right.
I don't know. Because but the last time we saw him, he was the best pitcher on this team. So what's he like now? Because second Tommy John surgery, I'm not expecting him to be the same pitcher that he was. So that'll play a role. But yeah, looking at these, this is pretty fair for Joe Musgrove.
Right. Yeah, and move on to Tyon. Someone you just mentioned. I mean, he is next up. It's a computer system. I'm sure projections aren't considering a second Tommy John, but they are considering, all this time missed as well. And also the fact, I mean, it might be hard for us to really digest this, but I mean, Jameson Tyon is 29 years old this season. It's crazy for me to think. Crazy to believe that. But he is 29 years old. Projected at just 106 innings pitched. 4.23 ERA, 4.21 FIP. Just above 2 WAR. I'm sorry, no, I apologize. 1.6 WAR. This is just, it's a crapshoot. Like, I couldn't tell you one way or another how I feel Jameson Tyon's season is going to go this year. At all. I want to bet any money on anything for Jameson Tyon because you just don't know. Is there going to be a guy who's going to put in the work and try everything he can to get there? And do I think there's the guy that's more mentally suitable for this? No, like I think he's that guy. And if I'm going to bet on a guy, it's going to be Jameson Tyon. But you just support all the numbers, all the stuff he's gone through. The second Tommy John, I don't know. If he provides this, it'd be fantastic. I think the pitch would be fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing. Like just getting him back on the field as a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball or even a reliever at this point is a win. And I'm with you. Like I don't know what to expect. Is he going to be the same pitcher that he was before? Is his fastball still going to sit 95 miles an hour? Is he,
is that curveball going to be?
Is the curveball still going to be nasty? Like
man, that's sexy.
Yeah. So, like at this point, I have no idea what Jameson Tyon is going to look like. He's just now throwing bullpens, I think. Just now getting started on that. I guess spring training, it'll be fun he'll actually be somebody that'll be, you'll want to see him just on the mound and what he looks like. So that'll be a good thing. But yeah, I can't have any issues with a projection like this when we have really no idea what type of pitcher he is at this point.
Right. And I mean, the one thing I would say going for him also is the length of it. He had Tommy John, although they still waited, but same time as Chad Cole, at the end of that season. So, and he hasn't had any setbacks. So I could see him being ready at the start. I don't think there's going to be an issue where he's coming in like in June or July. I do believe starting in spring, he'll be ready. So depending on how they'll limit or innings or whatever, of course he's still on the team. He should be able to do a full season per se.
Right.
But yeah, like I don't know what we're going to get out of that season. So I don't know. But I'm pulling for him. Next up, I mean, they're all tied, but JT Brubaker, Mitch Keller, the 1.4 WAR. Brubaker's gonna give us, I guess, 4.39 ERA. I mean, this is where we're going though, Jim. This is our third rated, pitcher, 4.39 ERA. Not shocked. I mean, they're giving 112 innings. I see like his path being in that rotation. I'm sure, especially on this team. Teams need innings. They need innings. You're probably more valuable as a starter than a reliever. So like you're gonna try every attempt. I still just think Brubaker is gonna be a really good reliever one day. I'd rather not see him in the rotation, but I'm sure that's where he's gonna be this year, especially if trades are made. And this is probably what you will get. So those numbers, they look pretty much okay to me.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, if this is who JT Brubaker is, then he's a capable starting pitcher, which I think we would all take. I mean, it's not like any of us really think JT Brubaker is going to be an ace top of the rotation starter. I think he could be useful, and like you mentioned, when we've seen him in the bullpen, he's been nasty. So I think that's, ultimately where, he would fit in an ideal situation. But same thing. Like really looking at these starting pitching numbers, no one's bad. Like everyone's fine. And I think that's, That's one thing to look at, like with this rotation. Like you got Musgrove, who clearly has kind of established himself as, he's good. Joe Musgrove is probably a number 3 starter on most major league teams. Same with Tyone too when he's healthy. Tyone even has potential to be a 2. But the rest of these folks, they are fine. Like they're capable. There's nothing exciting about them. If we go down to Brault, same thing. Nothing exciting about Brault, and he kind of outperformed everyone's expectations last year. But we've seen Steven Brault pitch for multiple years now. We kind of know who he is. 4.73
he was put in
ERA.
really good situations last year too. I mean, we got to be honest about that.
Yeah. So I think Brault, cool. I'm looking at cool. We haven't gotten him yet. Brubaker. I think Keller is the one pitcher on this list who can really, really outperform these projections.
Right.
I still view Keller as someone with a ton of upside.
It's the Polanco thing. Like it's there. Obviously, he hasn't had the lack of success as long as Polanco has had, right? Like we're not labeling him the bust like many people have labeled Polanco, but yes, right. Mitch Keller has not had a good major league career as of yet. But there's been numbers to support that he can. His stuff, as we talk about, with Tyone, his stuff can be very nasty as well when he's allowed to use it. And I'm with you. Like these projections, like you're not looking for Mitch Keller to give you a 4.52 ERA this year at all.
No.
Like that can't be. I definitely could see him beating this. And for the same reasons, his numbers support this. Like I get the projections, but I think when you look, the game inside the game is what hurt him playing that game. He wasn't like allowed to use his stuff his first year up. Mm-hmm. And then of course last year there was injuries, the weird year. So the bad numbers were there also. I do think there's a lot of untapped stuff in Mitch Keller. Is he going to be an ace by all means? Like I'm not sitting here saying like he's going to dominate, but he can be more than just a capable pitcher, Jim.
Yep. I think he's the one guy on this team looking at the staff. This is someone who can develop and blossom into a good starting pitcher.
Right.
And I mean, if we're talking about like wins above replacement with pitchers, a lot of it just has to do with your innings. But I think Keller's someone who can push into like that 4 to 5 win territory with starting pitching. I think that's kind of what he is able to do, which is going to put him in, one of the top pitchers in the National League. Like I'm not saying he's an ace by any means. He could be an ace on this
team. He'll be our ace.
I think. Yeah, I think he could be an ace on this team. But I think Mitch Keller could certainly become a top 50 starting pitcher in baseball.
That's fair. Yeah. And I agree that is what I think he can be. Absolutely. Next up, I guess let's go to Chad Kuhl. Another one of my guys, Chad Kuhl, 4.64 ERA, 97 innings pitched. I believe in Kuhl. I do. We've seen his stuff last year too. I know he had one terrible outing. And some of the stuff kind of diminished towards the end a little bit. I don't know. Again, the 4.64 ERA, maybe it's just me again, me and my love on Kuhl, but there's stuff that I really like about Kuhl. I've really liked Kuhl. I can see him beating this, being a very good trade chip as well. But
yeah, potentially.
I'm actually a little shocked that this is the projections, though. I'll say that. I thought he would get a little bit better love than this.
Yeah, I would say if we're looking at, what projections
going into
look at,
into 2020, I'll say this: he was projected a 4.33 ERA.
Mm-hmm. Well, the FIP took a big hit last year. He kind of lost his control, walked a lot of batters. The strikeouts kind of stayed stagnant. I think, when I'm talking about Kuhl, I look at him more as the kind of how we talked about Brubaker, right? I think in an ideal situation, Chad Kuhl's in the bullpen. on a team like the Pirates, Chad Cole's your number 3 or 4 starter. So I'm not too far off on these projections. I don't think Chad Cole is a good starting pitcher. If that makes sense. I think he can do it. He can do the job. But I think he's more suited for the bullpen.
I think he could be an outstanding bullpen pitcher, too. I feel he also can be a good starting pitcher. And maybe that's where we vary, and it's fine. I mean,
yeah,
it's perfectly okay to be a very good bullpen. Look at Drew Pomeranz. He's very happy that he ended up being a very good bullpen pitcher. So
exactly.
If that's what Chad Cole's role is, on a good team, that's a weapon.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that is ultimately his role. And I think that's where he's best suited.
Nice. I guess just a touch. I mean, Steven Brault projected a 4.73 ERA, 99 innings. I think we kind of touched on that. He had a good season last year. But to me, I think a lot of it was because he was good. He was put in good situations. So I think he can be a very capable pitcher in those crafty, creative situations. Like you want to use the opener, this and that. We've seen, like you mentioned, Brault. He's not the greatest pitcher. So again, I know there's a lot of people thinking that he should get traded, and there's a lot of love for him. But I also think most teams can look past the smoke and mirrors of this and say, well, he's more of this rest of his career than he was his 2020 season.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Steven Brault's 2020 is necessarily an indication of who he is. I think he is who he is, and he is what we've seen him be throughout his career, which is again somebody who can pitch some innings if you need him to, but he's not somebody that you're going to rely on to win you games.
Right. And it might be just that crafty opener or some type of, reliever they use and such, because, I know he was a air quotes starter, but, he never really saw the second time through the lineup.
Right.
Essentially, he was just a reliever that opened the game, an opener.
Yep. Yeah. I feel like the piggyback situation with him and Cool, that worked. I feel like there was one game where it didn't, but there was, for the most part, that combination, it worked out. So I wonder if they'll stick with that.
All right. I guess now we're hitting the bullpen guys. I mean, the bullpen's not.
Do we really want to talk about the bullpen?
I guess just a touch. I mean, Chris Stratton, a 4.77 ERA. They're 113 innings. We know he's not going to be a starter. He would be a reliever.
Right. These bullpen numbers
Stratton.
Are disgusting.
I like Stratton.
I do too. I think Stratton is a fine relief pitcher.
I think he could be the best, one of the better bullpen pitchers this year, easily. With that being said, I hope it's not with a 4.77 ERA. So I think he could beat those projections. Marvel 5 ERA, Feliz a 4.05. Let's talk about that maybe. Michael Feliz a 4.05 ERA. If he gave us that, I'd be comfortable with it.
Yeah, no, I think Michael Feliz is actually probably, when you're looking at bullpen and upside and all that, he's one of the higher guys. He's also been around. He's got experience, whereas most of these other players do not. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Hold on, I went back to
Feliz is 4.64. Feliz is 4.64.
2020. So that tells you about Feliz. He had a big drop.
Big drop.
Let's go back to 2021. Chris Stratton got worse, a 4.91 ERA.
Yeah, like I said, I'm looking at these bullpen numbers, and this is
yikes.
It's truly disgusting. There's not a single. Richard Rodriguez is fine.
Is Austin Davis our best pitcher? That can't be good.
Rich Rod.
Oh, it's
Rich Rod probably is. But yeah, other than that, it's bad.
Turley 4.7, Jeff Hartlieb 4.28.
I think there's some
Kyle
guys
Crick,
on here
4.5.
where you can look at them and you can think, okay, they have the capability. Like what we saw out of Blake Cedarland last year, you know, that was something to actually get excited about, right? So I think Blake Cedarland, someone, you know, that the Pirates fans can be excited about. He's not necessarily overwhelming here with these numbers, but I think that can change.
Here's
I
one
think another, yeah.
Will Crow projected a 5.61 ERA. Let's talk about Will Crow. Projected a 5.61 ERA. All right, can we stop talking about Will Crow?
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the kind of he's
Miguel
right there.
Del
with Carson
Pozo, a
Fulmer.
5.19 ERA. Miguel Del Pozo projected to be better than Will Crow.
Yeah, that's enough of Will Crow. It's enough of Will Crow. But no, looking at this bullpen, it's bad. It's a bad bullpen, and we knew that just from last year. The bullpen was terrible. It did kind of find its legs towards the end of the year, but for overall body of work, they were not good. But I mean, a few people of note, Cody Ponce, I expect him to probably be on the team next year. His numbers aren't terrible. They're at least in the 4s, right? We mentioned Hartlieb, Montana Darapu. Like these guys are Kyle Crick. Kyle Crick numbers aren't good. None of these are good. These are all bad.
They really
Rich Rods.
Nothing.
Rich Rods are fine. Rich Rod is those I'll take. But even him, we probably would want a little bit more out of him, other than a 3.84 earned run average. Sam Howard, kind of showed that he was a capable lefty. Yeah, this is looking at the bullpen. It's sad. It's a sad state of affairs there. There's not a whole lot of upside outside of Cedarland, I think. Maybe Nick Mears, see a little more of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't hate what I saw out of Cody Ponce last year. So I guess those are my thoughts.
Fair enough. So overall, Dan was pretty much spot on. Brian Hayes is the guy to watch this year.
Mm-hmm.
There's not many immortal. Not many more. Not gonna say there's, I still have my own interests, but yeah, Brian Hayes is definitely a bright spot. I'm only gonna bring this up because someone asked, and Dan was nice enough to actually put it in here for him. But someone asked in the Fangraphs comments about Josh Bell's projections, and so just so you are aware, Zips did project Josh Bell to have a 112 OPS plus, to be a 1.7 WAR player. So, talk about full body of work. He's projected to have just 0.2 WAR more than Colin Moran.
Interesting.
Yep.
Which makes sense just based off what he's done.
So
it's
there
not too
is
far off.
Also Josh Bell's numbers. All right. Well, we're going to call that a show, Jim?
Yeah, I think we've talked about computer numbers enough. Fake numbers.
And they weren't fun either.
These were not good. These were not good projections, which I think last year was the same. Last year's was bad as well.
Right. All right.
They got worse, though.
Well, we appreciate y'all listening. We'll be back. And I guess we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Later.